Hey folks, Ben here. We played both games Wednesday night, the Dungeons and the Dragons. When last we left our heroes, half of the group was pinned down in the dungeons beneath Broken Spire Keep, and the other half was hacking and slashing their way through orcs, hellhounds, and a hill giant. This week, we picked up right where we left off. I tried to fix a few of the issues that I had last session. I had the Elven Ranger Thuriel give a quick overview of the enemies that the players would be facing in the battle. He told them about Bonebreaker Doricor, leader of the Bonebreaker Orc tribe, and Rosad, priest of Erascus, the saint of undeath. The players made a beeline for the lower levels of the keep. A trip made easier by my friend Chelsea, playing the half-elf druid Roland, casting Animal Messenger to guide the party to his aid. Unfortunately, my friend Joe couldn't make it to the game, so Rule, the human thief, was out of commission, leaving Roland alone with a group of NPC prisoners with little gear. Last session, Rosad allowed the heroes 10 minutes to throw down arms and surrender. Now that 10 minutes was up, and Roland, trying to catch the villains off guard, offers to agree to Rosad's terms. So Roland and his NPCs hide in the secret room that they found last session as the enemies make their way into the prisons, and as Rosad and his retinue of orcs look around, scratching their heads, the heroes burst out of hiding and an epic battle ensues. So Roland starts off the battle by casting Flaming Sphere in the middle of the room, making short work of the orc minions in just a few rounds. Because Rule was the highest DPS character in the party, and he wasn't here this week, even though the Dragonborn NPC, Sir Arkazovar, was under-equipped, I gave him the Greater Cleave feat from 3.5, or Pathfinder. So, on his first turn, he cleaves 3 orcs in twain with a single swing. The players thought that was really badass. I don't think the players mind, and often they seem to enjoy when NPCs do badass stuff, as long as they have ample opportunity to do badass stuff themselves. You never want to take the spotlight away from the players. Sure, what this NPC did was really cool, but it wasn't any cooler than what any of the players had done previously in the campaign. So after about 2 rounds of combat, the other half of the party arrives down the hall from the main fight. Rosad breaks off and intercepts them with more orcs and hellhounds. For this combat, I decided to use group initiative starting with Roland's surprise attack, and while it did speed up combat somewhat, it still took about 3 hours to play out due to how many combatants there were. On the hero side, there was Roland, played by my friend Chelsea and his 4 NPCs. There was Kita, the paladin, played by my friend Rachel, Callan, the wizard, played by my friend Jeff, and Alris, the eldritch knight, played by my friend Stacy. They also had Thuriel, the Elven Ranger NPC, and also Sir Arkazovar, the Dragonborn Knight. They were both really powerful NPCs. Probably at or slightly above the player's level. On the villain side, there was Rosad, the priest of Erascus, Bonebreaker Doricor, leader of the orc tribe, 5 hellhounds, and about 20 or so orcs. Now, I wouldn't normally use that many bad guys in one encounter, but I had to make it realistic. I had to keep the verisimilitude of the game. Last session, Rule had tripped the alarm, and the enemies knew that they were in the dungeons. I think whenever I have a combat of more than 10 combatants, a combination of group initiative and grouping the bad guys' attacks together will make the combat run a little bit more smoothly next time. I remember once seeing a post on the Behind the Screen subreddit about grouping attacks without rolling to hit based on how many of the same attack was targeting a single player and that player's armor class. If I can find it, I'll post it on my Twitter, @BenThePious. So the players eventually hacked their way through all of the orcs that I could throw at them. Roland stepped back out of combat and healed Sir Arkazovar while he fought Bonebreaker Doricor one-on-one. Callan shot a fireball right at Rosad's face as Kita and Alris finished off the hellhounds. All around, it was a pretty impressive struggle, besides the fact that the bad guys didn't really get to do any of their cool abilities. Rosad got to cast a few spells that didn't do much, and Sir Arkazovar made all of his constitution saves against Bonebreaker Doricor's axe bleeding effect, but I don't think the players notice when you don't play 100% tactically, as long as most of the bad guys are acting plausibly. So after combat finished, Alris decided she wanted to stabilize Rosad and interrogate him. The party took a long rest, after which Stacy rolled really well on her bluff check to pretend she was a servant of Calorel the Vile, using a holy symbol of the Saint of Undeath to convince Rosad that she was on his side. Stacy got a huge kick out of squeezing the priest for information. She learned that Calorel the Vile was preparing for some profane ritual in Shadowgate Keep, where they sent Father Tace, and that he's trying to summon an avatar of Erascus to the material plane. Unfortunately, she forgot to strip him of weapons and magic items before the interrogation, so when she refused to let him go, he used the teleport inside of his ring of spell storing to escape. The players were really pissed, but they didn't feel like it was cheap or some sort of cheat, mostly because it was the player's fault for not checking the priest for magic items beforehand. So I got to feed the players valuable info and set up a future nemesis at the same time. 2 birds, 1 stone. Outside the tunnel, they find a book that details the deeds of Saint Nosa, the Lady of Mercy. Kida's currently wielding her weapon, Saint Nosa's Mercy, even though it was corrupted by a shadow dragon eons ago. They also find the journal of Father Tace. He writes about his investigation into the undead attacks and their connection to Caloral the Vile, as well as the players finding Nosa's Mercy and their quest to purify it. His last entry confirms what they were told by Rosad. Caloral the Vile is planning on summoning Erascus using an ancient portal within Shadowgate Keep. Only Nosa's Mercy, once purified, bathed in liquid gold melted by the undead dragon Pterodax's unholy fire, can stop the profane ritual. The players were super excited when they found Tace's journal. They correctly surmised that he must have dropped it while he was being taken to Shadowgate Keep so that the players would find it and they would have the information that they need to stop Caloral the Vile. I think it was a great tool to use as a DM that allowed me to curate exactly how much help the players get from high-level NPCs. Throughout the campaign, I've made it clear that the high-level NPCs that they've met along the way have bigger problems to deal with than dungeon delving and fighting a few zombies. I think if you're going to utilize high-level NPCs in your game, you need to answer the question, if they're so powerful, why aren't they dealing with this mess? So it's the end of the night, and the tension has been resolved, so before we packed up for the evening, I wanted to end the session on a bombshell. As the players finish searching the keep for anything of interest, they find a makeshift cage with a young boy inside. I described him as emaciated and malnourished. He was initially terrified when the players approached. They opened the cage and introduced themselves. He replied, My name is Edmund. Edmund Deimos, son of Baron Aegean Deimos. At that point, the players' jaws collectively hit the table. This kid is the true Baron of Denasia, and he knows all about Lord Saxon's plot from Rosad. So we ended the session with a great roleplay encounter. I've definitely gotten a lot better at roleplaying in the first person, or at least more comfortable with it. I think that it could have gone a lot better, but I accidentally played up the snobby teenage noble personality a little bit too much, and it left the players hating the kid. I wanted the players to think that he was a brat, but I should have been more subtle about it. In hindsight, I should have had the kid be a little bit more grateful for his rescue before immediately going into the whole, "You will address me as your grace or my lord," whenever the players called him kid. So the players are ready to storm Pterodax's lair and fight their way into Shadowgate Keep, but now they have this kid to deal with. So who knows what will happen next? I'm currently working on expanding the dungeon from the old 1st edition module, Keep on the Borderlands, the Caves of Chaos. I'm expanding it into a full mega dungeon, and I've been posting updates on Twitter. If you want to check that out, you can follow me at Ben the Pious. That's all for this week, and I'll see you next session.